What up, what up, what up? Hello, hello.
Welcome back
to another episode of the Blockument.
Yes.
That's right, crypto education through everyday conversation. My name's Nate Talbot. I'm the executive director of Detroit Blockchain Center. And to my right is the fantabulous.
I am Ashlee Rose. I am an everyday mother. I'm an online reseller. And I'm on a journey to figure out what in the heck is going on with all of this crypto, blockchain, Bitcoin stuff.
All this stuff here.
Yeah.
Well, I ask every week, but you feel like every week you're still making those little baby steps towards progress?
Yeah, because I have a pretty good list of questions for our topics that we've been having, and I find myself asking questions that I don't know that I would have asked previously.
You know, that's how I can tell how much somebody knows these days. The more confident you come across, the more you feel in your answers that you just know it all.
Yeah.
I've got it figured out.
Yeah.
It's all right, they haven't learned anything yet. Right?
Yeah.
Because every time you get an answer to something, it's going to spark about 10 more questions.
Yeah.
And you're on this forever, ever journey. I'm scouring, chat rooms and Twitter and meetup groups, always looking for more. I need more information. I don't know this. Tell me. Find somebody to tell me more.
And is what I think right? I think this, but is it right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Because it's a lot of this is based off of game theory. It's sort of a little bit overplayed, but the core of this is on game theory, and that whole thing is based off of just sort of human nature, human behaviors, right? Mm-hmm. And it's you can't know how humans behave. You can sort of make these educated guesses. Right. But it's not one of those things that it's you just know. It's all right, factually, this is how it's going to just play out.
Right.
You're just, all right, if this happens, and this is the most likely outcome.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of this stuff is. So it's hard to know any of the things. It's really more philosophizing.
Right. Well, I think you asking me this question is good as a nice little segue into what this podcast is about.
Okay.
Because this one is why isn't decentralization the point?
Decentralization is not the point, people.
Well, that's the thing is everyone, including myself, we all think okay, decentralization, this is decentralization.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna get into it after we do the mempool, but
yeah, that's cool. Let's dive into it. But before we start, where are we at right now? Where are we at in history?
Yes, let's see. Okay, so we are at block number 809,159.
All right.
And that block size is 1.79 megabytes, which is comprised of 716 transactions, which is interesting because usually I feel like it's in the thousands usually. But what do I know?
It usually is, but it can also be zero.
Okay.
We'll get into that later.
The total fees and subsidies for that one were 6.404 Bitcoin, which equates to 170,466 USD.
Nice.
Yes, and the miner that won that was Foundry USA.
All right, go Foundry.
Yeah, they're really rocking it over there.
Yeah. So, real quick, mempool side note. Why can it be zero sometimes? And that's okay. The transactions. Why can a block be zero?
My guess would be... Actually, I don't know. I was going to say something along the lines of an altruistic thing, but then I don't know. That's because...
That's not really altruistic.
No, I was no, that's just silly.
You've basically, because what does it mean when there's zero transactions in a block?
Nobody's money got sent.
No money got sent.
Yeah, and nobody got, and so then in turn, nobody made rewards.
Nah, that's not true.
Actually, no, because you would still get the subsidy. You'll
still get the subsidy. You just don't get any transaction fees because you didn't include any transactions.
So is that why it wouldn't be bad because it didn't move?
Nope, it's not bad. The question was that why it isn't bad? Because it didn't move. No, it's what's happening when you mine, right? What are you really doing?
Yeah.
If you remember.
Would it just be somebody's like, I don't want anybody to get their money
You
moved?
could do that if you're a miner. It's just there's not much. You spent tons of money, like winning this block, discovering this block.
It's like the lottery.
You've just given away all the transaction fees. You still get the mining reward, but you haven't made, like in this last block you just read, you didn't make the $4,000 in transaction fees. You just gave those up. But they didn't. Usually that's not what happens.
Okay.
What really happens is, remember when you're mining, you're just guessing.
Right.
Right? So is it 0? Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? Well, what if the answer is 1?
Yeah.
So before you have a chance, while your computer's guessing, right, it's also trying to figure out based on your rules what transactions to include. What if it guesses the number before it finds any transactions?
Oh, so then so what you're saying is like the computer or whatever hasn't put anything in the transaction block.
Right.
And then it wins, and then it's like, okay, well, we just gotta mine what we have.
You just mine. You keep going.
Just keep it moving.
You just keep it moving. You guess the block before you could add any transactions to it. Oops.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that.
Next round. And that's when you'll see these fast, and that's why like that difficulty adjustment is important, because if there were a bunch of miners and then maybe the price of Bitcoin went down, so a lot of miners turned it off, and now there's only a few of us mining.
Yeah.
We're going to guess the blocks a lot quicker.
Like too fast.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, actually a lot longer, but then if it goes the other way, so if the price of Bitcoin goes up, but everybody hasn't turned their miner back on yet, right? The difficulty is really low. We can guess that number quicker.
Yeah.
But that isn't sort of the point of today's show.
I know. Yeah.
The point is about not being the point.
Yeah.
And the point is, why doesn't decentralization matter? That isn't the point. Decentralization isn't the point. It's not about does it matter or not.
Yeah.
And so I spent a good part of 2022 and well into 2023 with my online rants and raves complaining to everybody who was like, decentralization is the point. It's not the point. I hate when I hear that. Decentralization, to a great extent, is way, way overhyped, especially when it's related to blockchain.
That's what I hear.
Decentralization is not the point. So I'm going to bounce it to you first.
Oh,
why would you think that I would think and make that bold claim that decentralization is not the point?
Well, I'm going to just throw myself under the bus because you've told me so many times. It's something along the lines of like decentralization is great and all, but like that doesn't always give you the trust. Like you need the trust and the permissionless and the censorship resistant. But just because you're decentralized doesn't mean that you will end up with those results. Something along the lines of that.
Okay. Let's reflect. What is the point? What made Bitcoin, the idea of a Bitcoin, what made that so special? Why do people want that? Even before Bitcoin, if you go to like BitGold and some of the predecessors to a Bitcoin, and you go back to the cypherpunk movement, what was the point?
They wanted money that was censorship resistant and permissionless and could like be moved easily. I don't know. The third one I'm kind of messing up, I feel like, but
no, I mean, yeah, that's it. You need something that's
like portability.
Well, that's the whole point of digital money, right? We want it to be portable. Something like gold and even cash isn't very portable. Just think if you're leaving your country.
Oh, trustless.
Right, and trustless is the other one, the big one. I was going to say on the portability part, like if you're leaving your country and you have a bag full of cash or gold or whatever, yeah, good luck.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not very portable like that. And or if you're a nation state or anything large and you need access to money quickly,
well, and it's very obvious that you have money, so obviously, if you're fleeing somewhere with all of your money, other people are probably as well, and you've got a big inconspicuous bag of gold.
Right. But you got to lug around. You got a big target on your back.
Yeah, you better have a big gun with you too.
Yeah. Well, that's true. But yeah, the real thing is the main points, I should say, not the real thing. The main points were permissionless, right? You don't have to ask anybody in order to access or use your money. Trustless, like you said, which means I'm not trusting in anybody, particularly a middleman, right? I don't have to trust that. I don't have to give my money to some middleman to give to you.
Right.
And worry about what's happening in between, right? And vice versa, going around the other way when I'm receiving the money. And censorship resistant. If I'm storing my wealth, if I'm using it for whatever, storing my spent energy in this money so I can spend it later, I don't want somebody to come and just be able to take it from me frictionlessly. Yeah. Right? So those are really the points.
Right.
That's why we have this. How do you do a digital property transfership and maintain those three properties, right? This is sort of the problem that Bitcoin solved, because even the predecessor before Bitcoin, all of them still had a man in the middle. You still had to have somebody who made sure nobody double spent, because we're talking about digital money, right?
Right.
So theoretically, you could copy and paste it, just like you do with everything else digitally.
Right.
Just copy, paste, so you can spend the same dollar infinitely.
Yeah.
So you need somebody in the middle to verify that, all right, you've already spent that one. They're basically keeping that ledger, right? So the problem they had, though, the reason they had that middleman was, how do you keep that ledger so people can't do a double spend, right? It stops the double spend, but without that man in the middle. How do you do that?
Right. Yeah.
Well, peer-to-peer networking, which has been around forever, right? That's how you do that, right?
Because everybody will keep everybody else in check, because that's just like, I don't know, it feels like that's just like the nature of the way things go.
So a lot of
nobody
people
can mind their own business.
Right. So a lot of people think of nodes, right? We'll use Bitcoin as the example, but this exists in pretty much all the chains that are worth talking about. You'll have these miners or validators, right? Those are the people who are adding the transactions to the block. But then you have nodes. Those are just individuals. What are the nodes really doing?
Keeping a ledger.
They're keeping which ledger, though? For what purpose?
For themselves, to validate.
See? Look at that. Look at all that education you got going on. Exactly, right? They're keeping, the whole purpose of running your own node is so you have your own copy of the rules, right? And you have your own copy of the ledger. And so when I'm sending or receiving money, I'm not interested, if I really want that self-sovereignty, if I really want the full power of that network, right? I only am concerned with my node, my copy of the software.
Right.
Right? And what it does is it's going to make a call out, and it's going to look at all the other copies of the software, and they're going to come to consensus based on these presets of rules. Does this transaction follow this rule? Did it follow this rule? If it didn't, my node's going to reject it.
Okay.
Your node, maybe it fooled your node, but your node sees that my node rejected it, and a handful of other nodes that you're connected to also rejected it. And then it just becomes consensus, so sort of like a majority rule. Well, the network, this looked right on my end, but the network says it's not right. Therefore, I'm going with the network. It's not right.
Right.
And then we go to the next block. But you're only really focused on your own node. I want to make sure mine is the right copy. That's all I really care about.
Right.
Right? That's what makes them powerful. That's where decentralization starts to come into play. Right? Because we're not trusting some middleman with a copy of the ledger.
Right. To be like, this is accurate and true.
Right. The analogy I like to use a lot when I'm doing like little presentations on this is like, imagine playing like poker or any other game with a stake, right? Where you're keeping score.
Okay.
So normally you'd have one scorekeeper. Okay?
Okay.
That should be, if it's some kind of professional league, something that's going to be somebody not connected to the game.
Right.
But even then, I have to worry about the incentive alignment. I think there was this big poker thing that happened maybe a couple months ago where turns out like somebody in the control room was tied to one of the poker players, you still had to worry about all that.
Yeah.
So I don't trust anybody, right?
Right.
So I'm playing. You might be the scorekeeper, but I'm like, that's cool. You can be the official scorekeeper, but I'm going to keep my own tally to the side. Right? And then producer extreme, Chan over here, she's like, well, if you're keeping score and you're keeping score, I'm gonna keep score.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden everybody at the table's keeping score. We admit you're the official scorekeeper right now, but every so often we're all just gonna be like, what do you got for the score? Let me look at your score sheet, and I'm gonna look at mine. I'm gonna look at everybody else's.
Yeah, it reminds me of baseball a little bit too.
Similar to baseball. Yeah.
Yeah. So who would it go by? Like, what if everybody's is different or not the same?
Oh yeah.
Well, if everybody's is different, there's no consensus.
Yeah.
So I'm going to revert to my own copy, and I recommend you all do the same, which means there's zero consensus on that round.
Has that happened
Maybe
before?
that round has to get replayed. Not with Bitcoin. Well, not to that extent.
Yeah,
not with Bitcoin,
yeah.
but yeah, it happens all the time in Bitcoin and in most chains, right? You have these like orphan blocks. What'll happen is
You call it an orphan block?
yeah, because what'll happen is you'll have, if I'm a miner and you're a miner, right, and we both guess the number. All you're doing is guessing the number.
Right.
We both guess the number at the same time. Most blockchains are basically gossip protocols.
Oh
right?
wow.
So it's like when a miner wins a block, it basically just yells out, "I won a block. Here's the number." And then all of us hear the number and be like, all right, well, it's really hard to guess the number, but it's really easy to confirm the number, right?
Okay.
It might take you about 10 minutes in Bitcoin to guess the number, but it only takes like a fraction of a millisecond with a computer to confirm that the number is correct.
Yeah.
So if you're the miner, you're like, I want a number, right? The people who hear you, those nodes that hear you, they take it, check it real quick, and be like, cool, that's the number. And if you're another miner, you're like, cool, I'll check it real quick. That's the number. I'm starting to work on the next block. Right? And then all of us nodes are sitting there. But it's a gossip network. So just like gossip, right? I'm going to tell like 5 people. Those 5 people each tell 5 to 8 people. Those, right?
Right.
So we both guess the number as miners at the same time.
Oh.
Right? You tell your 5 people to 10 people that are connected to you. I tell mine. And then all of a sudden it gets to chance.
Yeah, like
right?
eventually.
And she's like, well, I don't know which one is right. She's going to stick with the first one she heard.
One thing in one ear and another thing in another ear.
But then she's going to take the other one and she's just going to sort of put it off in the memory. Like, all right, I see there's 2 different scores. I got this one first, so I'm going to sort of stick with this one. But I'm going to keep this one over here for right now. And then a new block will get one. And maybe 2 more people win it at the exact same time. Whichever one you hear first that also aligns with that last block, you'll keep.
Yeah.
Until all of a sudden, all the messaging is like, nope, this is the one. The ones you didn't pick, that's the one the majority of the network is growing off of. So you're like, all right, well, that must have been the right one. I'm going to go back, switch out these blocks, get rid of all those transactions, put the new ones back in. This is now the official chain as far as you're concerned.
But does the node do that for you?
That's what the node's doing for
God
you, right?
Bless. Okay.
Once you set up, so...
I'm like, oh, that's too much.
Right, yeah. Thank God for technology. Yeah, like we say this, but these are rules that you control. You can set whatever rule set you basically want in your own node. It's just if you change the wrong rule,
Right.
just like if we were playing spades or poker. I could play by my own set of rules when I'm playing, but if you guys don't agree to those set of rules, you're going to invalidate every hand, right?
Yeah.
So as long as you don't change the rules enough where nobody else respects your rules, you can change. It's your node, right? And it's your node, it's my node. That's the decentralization point. So when I say things like decentralization is not the point, too many people get tied into decentralization. The whole point of this is decentralization. Decentralization is a method. The point is, how do we have peer-to-peer, permissionless, censorship-resistant, trustless money, right? Or digital property. The how is decentralization. Is one of the hows. The why, it's not the why. It's not the point. When you say, what's the point of doing something, you're usually asking, why are we doing something?
Right.
We're not doing this. We've had decentralization well before Bitcoin. You know what I mean? The internet is decentralized.
Oh, yeah?
Well, yeah. What is the internet? It's 2 or more computers talking to each other. All I need is an Ethernet cable to go from my computer to your computer. Now, there are centralization points. I can't run a Ethernet cable from my computer to somebody who's in Germany's computer.
Right.
That's a pretty long cable. I can't maintain that. I can't do all that.
Yeah.
So I require, I have to go through something like a Comcast or something.
Right.
Who then goes through one of there's like 7 or 8 main lines that run intercontinentally.
Yeah.
So that there become centralization points, but in its core, we could run a intranet on our own. You could run a local community network, right? We've talked about this before, about like a mesh network of an internet where just you and your neighbors, you might not have access to the greater web outside of your neighborhood, but you have access to each other's information. If everybody's sort of keeping a redundant copy locally, right? That's how you decentralize the internet. Right? You build it off of a whole bunch of local little area networks that hopefully have redundant information in them, and that network gets wider and wider. So it's like saying with cars, right? What is the point of a car? Is it the transmission?
No.
No, the point of a car is not transmission, it's transportation.
Right.
How do you get from A to B?
Yeah.
Right? Now, in that, a transmission is a key focus, right? It helps that whole mission, but one day they might think of something that's not a transmission that still gets the car from A to B.
Right.
Blockchains, as we know them today, are the whole point of them is it allows you to do decentralization, decentralized verification.
You're saying blockchains allow you to do decentralization.
They allow you to do the digital transactions without needing a middleman.
Okay.
And they do it in a decentralized way.
Okay.
Somebody one day might come along. There are other things. Blockchains are not the only tech in crypto. There are other. There's like they got like DAGs. That's a cyclical graph.
DAGs?
We'll do a whole episode
I know,
on
I'm writing it
the
down.
things
I'm
not
writing it
blockchain.
down.
What else besides blockchain?
Yeah.
Blockchain has been the form of distributed ledger. They're all distributed ledgers, right? Blockchain is the form of distributed ledger that we find works best thus far.
Okay.
Right? That's not to say in 10 years, in 5 years, or in 5 minutes, somebody doesn't figure out a different way to do it. And maybe that way doesn't depend on decentralization at all. Maybe there's a centralized way to do it that still allows for the permissionless censorship resistance. I don't know what that is.
Do the different ways have to be tested before being kind of launched?
Yeah, exactly. These things got to be tested first.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like right now in most of crypto, there's talks of this thing called like zero knowledge, right? Zero knowledge proofs, validity proofs. This is, again, not a new thing, even though most people are just starting to hear about it. This has been around since, like, I think the first paper on validity proofs, it was called zero knowledge proofs, was in the 90s, maybe.
Oh, wow.
When Bitcoin had just launched, it was remember, Satoshi was only around for about a year after Bitcoin's official launch, right? I think he left sometime in 2010, disappeared. He even talked about it. Like, they're like, hey, there's no real privacy here. He's like, yeah, there's these, the conversation just centered around zero knowledge proofs, but the consensus at that point was, at that point, 10 years ago, it was still too new.
Right.
We still probably need to test it because you can't build this. You only get one shot at this. When you're building these kind of networks, there's only one chance, really. And if you mess it up, it's done. It's dead. And so it's like this isn't the place for experimentation.
Right. You don't want to risk it now.
Right. But now, zero knowledge proofs, validity proofs have been around for like 30-something years, right? Around the same amount of time as SHA-256, which is the whole core of sort of Bitcoin's cryptography, the crypto in cryptography, had been around when Bitcoin became a thing. So now there's real conversations. All right, well, how do we implement it? Why do we implement it? Do we need to implement it? Some places does the main chain. Is that something we should do for layer 2s? Right? So new ideas come around. Same thing with the concept of just blockchain. New ideas could come around, and you maybe using zero knowledge proof somehow be able to do a blockchain, quote unquote, without the blockchain. And so, again, for the structure that we use today, decentralization is critical,
Yeah.
but it's not the point. It's the method.
How is it getting confused as the point? Like, where do you think, this is like just an opinion, like, where do you think it's getting its hype for decentralization from? Just like marketing or like, and also like, what is it being confused for?
It's always the generation before's fault. And I consider myself, I've been seriously playing in this space since like 2015, 2016. So while I'm not an OOOG, old enough to where it's partially my fault. I can take some of that blame, right? Because decentralization is an easy concept to sell. And so when you're trying to tell people why they need this,
Like for adoption?
for the adoption, well, just in like talking to you, look at how far along we are in this conversation. This is episode 20 or 30 or something, whatever episode this ends up being. Yeah, been around. We're just getting to this point of the conversation, right?
Right.
You probably thought decentralization was way, way more important. It's probably because, like, in my conversations with you or your conversation with somebody else, it's like, do I start off by going down the rabbit hole of what is money?
Yeah.
The story I like to tell, when I first decided to become like an educator in the space.
A blockhead.
A blockhead, yeah. I'm taking that. Look out for the blockhead t-shirts coming soon.
Oh my gosh. You heard it here first, folks.
You heard it here first.
I want my royalties.
That's right. Couple sats per shirt.
That's right.
So the reason I decided to do that is we're sitting at a meetup, and like you, it's like, all right, I feel like I know some things, but I was at that weird point. It's like, this seems like it makes sense, but I know it's so complicated I can't really understand it the way I think I understand it, right?
Yes.
And so somebody came in.
It makes sense, but I don't know how, but like I know it makes sense.
Exactly. And
my gosh,
somebody came in to explain something, and somebody asked a simple question like, how does it work, or why do we need this or something? And the conversation started like, well, there's this thing called the Byzantine generals problem, right? It's computer science, and they go into explaining the Byzantine generals problem. Now, this is like in the prime of like the 2017 bull run.
Okay.
And I just watched, there was probably about 15 people sitting at this table, and I watched all their eyes glaze over.
Yeah.
He hadn't gotten past, there's this thing called the Byzantine general. Eyes just went, shoo.
Yeah.
I was like, why don't you just tell them it's like peer-to-peer money?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, you could have just got there.
You got to spark the interest first and then kind of back it up and be like, here's the mechanics. Yeah.
And that's sort of my teaching method anyway, right? When I'm teaching anything to somebody.
Yeah.
And so I can take some partial blame for that, because it would be like, well, decentralization, right? We need to have decentralized peer-to-peer, right? Why should you have somebody else when you and me can do it directly, and we do that through decentralization?
Yeah, I do the same thing. This is why I was asking you. I'm like, am I just like a loopy gal? Okay, what's the blockchain and what's Bitcoin? I'm always like, oh, it's a decentralized
Yes, it's
network.
a decentralized network and it's not that it's not true. It's just that that's not the important part. Right. Again, it's like asking about, like, well, what is a car? Well, it's this machine that's built with this engine and a gas combustion piece.
Oh, and there's a brake.
And there's these brakes, right? And the real genius, right, of a car is the assembly line, right? There's this assembly line that did this, and it's like, all right, you've never answered really and now people are walking around like, what's the point of a car? The assembly line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, that's not the point.
Or back in the day, there were horse and carriages.
There was horse and carriages, right? But now you had to breed horses. You don't have to breed a car. You can build a car, right? And it's like, it's not that those statements aren't necessarily true, but it shifts the focus. And then when you're having more crucial conversations, and this is why I'm passionate about decentralization is not the point. When you have to have actual conversations about things like government regulation that's coming in all over the place now, or you want to build things on top of your base layer, like DeFi or NFTs. And people are starting to say, like, well, what's the point of an NFT? Decentralization in art. Like, art wasn't really not decentralized.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You had these centralized points, but it's not fixing the problem you think you're fixing, because that's not the problem.
Right.
Right? The problem is the censorship resistance piece, the permissionless piece. Decentralization is the best method we know how.
That's kind of an interesting way to, like, if somebody asks, okay, what is like blockchain and Bitcoin? Well, it's permissionless, trustless, and some censorship resistant. Do you think that's like too eye glazy of something to say to somebody, or do you think that's like okay to say?
No, I think it's too eye glazy. I love the words. I use them all the time, but permissionless is sort of a made up word, right? You go type permissionless into your computer. It's going to tell you, like, did you
really?
mean permission?
Yeah.
Like less permission?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean?
Did you mean more government?
Right. So that's a hard word if you're not already familiar with the lingo. Trustless loses people all the time, right?
Yeah.
It's a great word, but it's also a horrible word, like trustless.
It's confusing. Yeah.
Right. What do you mean? When you're trying to really convey, it's not that
Everyone's
everything
like,
is
trust
trustless.
Is good.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that, like, you don't trust anybody. That's not what trustless means, right? It means there is no need to trust.
Right.
I don't have to trust. If we're doing physical cash, you hand me a $20 bill, I don't have to trust you handed me a $20 bill.
Yeah.
Right? I know it. It's confirmed instantly. I verified it.
Right.
I don't trust. I just verify.
Yeah. Or
here's my
even
20
like,
bucks.
Yeah. Or like a fake bill.
Well, that's what you do when you go to the store and you hand them like a 20 or a 50. They don't want to, it's not that they don't trust you. They just want to verify. So they take the little marker and go, whoop, or hold it up to the light and go,
Right.
oh, I've just verified this is not a counterfeit. Right? So, method, it's a bad word, trustless. I just don't know a better word to use.
We need to come up with like a really solid like answer to that.
Well, I challenge anybody listening, if you got a better idea, hit us up and let us know.
Like your elevator pitch for like blockchain and Bitcoin. Well, Bitcoin, I would say more than.
It could be. I mean,
whatever
the lingo's
coin.
the same across
Yeah.
the lingo's the same across the spectrum, right?
Yeah. Well, we could say crypto, but that might infuriate some of the Bitcoin folks.
Right, but these definitions matter, right? Because it's like one day we'll do an episode like on wallets and stuff. But I think it was Luke Dashner, who's like this Bitcoin developer. There was somebody talking about something about wallets or something, about an account balance. And he just threw out like a simple sentence like, well, wallets don't keep account balance. Wallets don't have a balance. And that threw everybody out. It even threw me off for a hot second. Like, what do you mean wallets don't have a... Oh, I get what you're saying, because I really know what a wallet is.
He's
right?
saying because it's a key to access what's on the
because it's a
blockchain.
keychain. It's like saying it's like saying your house key, your keychain contains your TV. No.
Yeah.
Your keychain contains a key that unlocks a door
To get into,
into
the
this
house.
vault that contains your TV.
Got it. Oh, that's a really good one. Did you just make that up right now?
Well, yes, but
That's really good. I like it.
that's what he made. But you don't understand what you're saying. And now there's a lot of people who are like, "What do you mean it doesn't contain your? My wallet contains all my coins." And then no, actually, it doesn't do any of that.
Yeah.
Because we don't understand what the words we're saying
Well,
mean.
yeah, and I feel like it's misnamed wallet.
Well, it is. There's many things here, just like trustless and permissionless and everything else we just talked about. There's things that are misnamed or too much focus is put on the topic, like decentralization. And so this is why I have this huge crusade around decentralization is not the point. You know what I mean? Just like I'm doing my slight sort of Satoshi doesn't matter campaign. You know, because
I my initial reaction to that is like, oh, what?
Yeah, blasphemous.
But then like I know what you're trying to get at, but I don't know why I just have like this initial like triggering.
Because we put so much emphasis around this. The white paper, whichever white paper you're most intrigued by, it's not the Bible.
Yeah.
Right? The Bible isn't even the Bible. Look at just like real religion, the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, the whatever book.
Right.
There's all this. It's like, all right, that's one. This is a framing. Maybe it's a great guideline for you.
Yeah.
But
There's other perspectives and other things that come
It's
into
not
play.
the actual word,
Right.
It's person's interpretation of whatever the word is.
You're about to get lit up by some of these
Well,
people.
it can be what it be. The whole thing is,
Yeah.
if
I
that's
understand what
true
you're saying,
of this thing that we've had for centuries,
Mm-hmm.
dozens of centuries, it's definitely true for this technical paper,
Yeah.
right? That somebody wrote up. You know, the white
just
paper
about 10
says you
years
can't do this. Well, I'm going to give a shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The white paper could have been wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why decentralization is not the point. It's important. I don't mean to say like we don't need decentralization, because my primitive brain has no better idea of how to make the thing work.
Yeah.
But that's not to say just because I can't think of it, somebody else can't.
Yeah. It's not like the main thing that needs to be propped up on a pedestal and praised. Like, thank you, cryptos, for giving us decentralization. Like,
Right.
is that what you're kind of getting at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a method, and you fall too much in love with this ideal that's not really the real driving point. I can have something that's decentralized and censored.
Right. Now, would you explain that? I've heard you. I've personally heard you explain it before, but
Well, like think of, not to hammer. No, I'll just use Bitcoin.
okay.
So right now, there's only one group of people who can take a transaction and put it inside of a block. And if it's not inside of a block, it doesn't matter.
Right.
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 And those are miners. They're
Right.
the only ones who can put it in the block.
Right.
Okay. Now, who won that one block? Foundry, right? So Foundry is a pool, but that pool makes up this like list of rules. Remember, everybody can have their own rule set.
Right.
Well, Foundry, it's literally Foundry USA, so they're a U.S.
Yeah.
pool.
Yeah.
Right? So they have to follow U.S. laws.
Right.
One of the U.S. laws, or really a law, but one of the U.S. rules is called the OFAC list.
Oh yeah.
Which is basically, here's people we don't, usually nation states, companies, individuals, whatever, that we don't want any American citizen to deal with. They're on bad corner
Yeah.
time,
They're
right?
on like a blacklist. Yeah.
They're on this blacklist.
They're in
And so what
timeout.
Foundry USA is supposed to do is censor, the U.S. government will find out, right? They'll do whatever methods, and they'll find like, all right, these wallet addresses, these Bitcoin wallets are owned by these people we don't like, these entities we don't like. So Foundry USA can add into its rule set, while grabbing transactions, go 10 steps back, right? So Nate's going to send money to Ashlee, right? So look at that money. Is Nate's wallet that he's sending the money to Ashlee, is that on the OFAC list? No. Go 10 steps back. The wallet that sent Nate those Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Did that come from this? No.
Yeah.
And do that 10 times back.
Yeah.
Once you're 10 times back, all right, we don't think you washed it. Right? We don't think there's money laundering or anything else going on. Therefore, we'll include that transaction in the block.
And that's a form of censorship.
That's censorship.
Yeah.
It's still decentralized,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I just got censored.
Right.
Which is why I don't say the point is censorship. It's censorship proof.
Yeah.
It's censorship resistant, because Foundry has to do that, but maybe there's another block pool or another mining pool or individual miner living in Bosnia,
Right.
or something. Well, they don't have to follow the OFAC list. So I didn't make that block, but I made another block
Yeah.
someplace else,
Yeah.
right? Because the decentralization helps me get around the censorship piece. But
Yeah.
censorship is still there, right?
Right.
So it's censorship resistance, which is the point. Decentralization is the method to achieve that point,
Right. Okay.
right? And right now, we don't know of a better way to do that.
It almost seems like the decentralization gives you options to avoid censorship. I think that's what you just said, but
Yeah.
I'm repeating it.
Whatever
for my
makes
sake.
you lock it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And so, like, once you understand, like, what zero knowledge and validity proofs and that stuff is, there's maybe a potential, maybe it would require a soft fork, I don't know, but maybe there's a way to get that same censorship resistance, but now you could use centralized systems and maintain censorship resistance. You might be able to use a centralized system and maintain trustlessness and permissionlessness. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
That seems
And
a
we
little
just
tough,
keep doing
but-
what we're doing. Well, right. But Bitcoin was tough.
Yeah.
Until it wasn't. And now we have 30,000 different versions of a Bitcoin floating around.
Yeah.
It was impossible until it wasn't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
And so, again, it's like, what are you really fighting for? What's the real point of why you're doing any of this? I'm not doing this for decentralization. Right. I'm embracing decentralization because it enables me to do the stuff I'm really in this for.
Right. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah,
That's
thank
why
you.
decentralization is not the point. And
Yeah.
please stop saying it.
Yeah. But run and tell your friends, okay?
Right. Run and tell a friend. Each one teach one. All right. And like we said, we are looking for some new words to use, right? Because the whole industry could use it. So if you got ideas, where can they drop those ideas off to us at?
Twitter or X. I feel like I always have to say that. I feel like this forever. I have to. Yeah.
They just did a poll, and something like 60-something% of people still call it Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, well,
'Cause
that's what it is.
Twitter, yeah.
Shows you how hard branding can
Well,
be.
and Facebook and Meta. Same thing.
Yeah.
You don't hear me saying we're on Facebook or Meta. Like Meta is just like not happening.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What's Google's real name?
Wow. I don't know.
Is it?
Lugal.
Nope. Google is just the search engine. The company is called Alphabet.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They changed their name. Nobody cares.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, anyways,
So yeah, where can you find us?
Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok.
Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok.
Yeah, and TikTok's yet to change their name, but we'll see. We'll keep an eye out.
All right. And you can always go to theblockument.com to get resources on this episode, listen to past episodes,
Yep, find out where you can listen to us.
where you can listen to us, and all
Spotify,
that good
iPhone,
stuff.
Android.
Spotify, anywhere you can check out podcasts pretty much. And if you
We're
can't,
there.
and if we're not, let us know. We'll get there.
Yeah.
So other than that, come for the riches.
Stay for the revolution.
Peace.
Peace.